Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Thursday morning, September 3rd, 2020. This is Coffee Conversations with Greg J. How's everything with you? Doing all right? We're just rolling around here trying to make things happen, trying to inspire and inform and, just get with the community here. We're still on quarantine. Isn't that something? Thursday, September 3rd. I don't know, been 6, 7, 8 months. Whew, Lord of mercy. How's everything going with y'all? Y'all doing good? Doing good? How's the family? Is everybody all right? You making it happen? Got a lot in front of us, don't we? Just keep yourself balanced, keep yourself, prayed up. It's a lot, man. A lot in front of us. Quarantine, racial injustice, time. We don't know what the situation is around us. It's crazy. Who would have thought we would ever be in such a time as this? And, we just doing the best that we can right now with what we have. And I think that with positive thoughts, with prayerful thoughts, with our face towards the light, this too shall pass and we will overcome. Great show we have today. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Like, watch, share, tell your friends. We on, y'all. We're gonna get into it in just a minute, but let's just roll through these headlines really, really quick before we get to the meat of the matter today. Today is what is that? September 3rd, Thursday. Leading off today, a black man who would run naked through the streets of a Western New York City. That was Rochester, New York. Died of asphyxiation after a group of police officers put a hood over his head, then pressed his face into the pavement for 2 minutes, according to video and records released Wednesday by the man's family. Daniel Prue died on March 30th after he was taken off life support 7 days after the encounter with Rochester police. His death received no public attention until Wednesday when his family held a news conference and released police body camera video and written reports that they obtained through a public records request. I placed a phone call for my brother to get help, not for my brother to get lynched, Prue's brother Joe Prue said at the news conference. How did you see him and not directly say, this man is defenseless, buck naked on the ground? He's cuffed up already. Come on. How many more brothers got to die for society to understand that this needs to stop? That's a question, isn't it? Joe Biden faces the most intense test yet of his pledge to be a calming, unifying leader for a divided nation when he travels today to Kenosha, Wisconsin. That's the city that's now at the center of America's election year reckoning with systemic racism. The Democratic presidential nominee, traveling 2 days after President Donald Trump visited the same city, plans to meet with the family of Jacob Blake, something that Donald Trump did not Jacob Blake does remain hospitalized after being shot 7 times in the back by a white police officers as authorities try to arrest him. Biden also plans a community discussion with business figures, civic leaders, and law enforcement officials. The federal government has now told states to prepare for a coronavirus vaccine to be ready to distribute by November 1st. The timeline raised concern among public health experts about an October surprise, a vaccine approval driven by political considerations ahead of a presidential election rather than science. In a letter to governors dated August 27th, Robert Redfield, director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, said, in the near future, states will receive permit applications from McKesson Corporation, which is contracted with the CDC to distribute vaccines to places including state and local health departments and hospitals. CDC urgently requests your assistance in expediting applications for these distribution facilities, and if necessary, we ask that you consider waiving requirements that would prevent these facilities from becoming fully operational by November 1st, 2020, Redfield wrote. He also wrote that any waivers will not compromise the safety or effectiveness of the vaccine. And the Associated Press obtained the letter, which was first reported by McClatchy, The CDC also sent three planning documents to some health departments that included possible timelines for when vaccines would be available. The COVID-19 vaccine landscape is evolving and uncertain, and these scenarios may evolve as more information is available. Gotta keep your eye on that one, y'all. Last Friday, we commemorated the 57th anniversary of the famed March on Washington in 1963. And in response to these trying times, civil unrest, racial and social injustice, Reverend Al Sharpton and the National Action Network convened the Commitment March that was attended by tens of thousands. We watched it here. We were inspired. We were motivated. It was indeed a meaningful exposition of Black activism. And so we turned to some of our friends who were there, who are out there on the front lines of this enhanced battle against social injustice. So today on Coffee Conversations, I want to just welcome right now Pastor Robert D. Bush. Good morning, Pastor.
Good morning to you. How are you?
And out there on the road, on them their hogs and whatnot, Porshe Taylor. Good morning, Porsche.
Good morning.
Are you there?
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
That's right. And Reverend K.W. Tulloss. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to everybody this morning.
All right, there you are. Yes. Good to have all of you here. Is really, really awesome to link up in this manner with you. I need to just satisfy the curiosity of all of our friends here. Sister Porshe Taylor's out there riding those bikes. She's the president of Black Girls Ride. I see she's actually really moving. First of all, I'll tell the audience here, because Coffee Conversations with Greg Day and BeachCityRadio.com, we originate from the beautiful city of Long Beach, and we were very, very proud to note that Porshe Taylor took a center stage right there on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, and she's the president of Black Girls Ride, and she literally is rolling across the country, advocating against social injustice and whatnot. She's on her bike right now. Hey, what's going on, Porsche?
Good morning. How
are you literally driving right now?
Yeah, I'm riding right now. I'm on Highway 70 West coming through Indiana.
What? That's incredible. I love that. All right, what you riding on? Let's get into a little bit of motorcyclisms right now.
Yeah, so my bike is a 2020 Indian Challenger.
Wow, that's what's up. Okay, now how deep is your crew right now?
Right now, I'm solo. Everyone's dispersed into their own directions, and I'm by myself now, heading back to Long Beach.
All right. Well, look, I'm glad you're able to join us right here, and certainly be safe now. Let's get right to it. So last week, there we are. We saw you on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Talk to us about how that came to be, and what is your advocacy in this day and time?
So first, let me just give you a little bit of background on Black Girls Ride. It's actually a motorcycle magazine for women of color. We created in 2011 because we noticed there just wasn't much representation of women of color in motorsports. So we wanted to be that change. The magazine turned into a movement of hundreds of women, well now thousands actually, across the country. And our goal, once we heard that there was going to be a march on Washington, was to get women to mount up and ride to the march. So we actually had over 100 women join us for that ride in Washington, D.C. We left from Long Beach, California, and then rode all the way to D.C. That was about a 4-day ride. Originally, when we had the concept to go, I went on ahead and I put my permit in for us to congregate at Freedom Plaza because I knew that we need a space for us to meet, and then we were going to head over to join the larger march. And Reverend Sharpton got wind of what we were doing and invited us to become official partners of the National Action Network in the march, which, we were honored and proud to be a part of. And then sometime later, he invited me to speak at a march to talk about Black Girls Ride and our dedication to ride for Black lives. So, as it stands right now, all of the registration for the riders that joined us, all of that money goes to Black Lives Matter. And we've raised over $5,000 for Black Lives Matter, which I'm excited about because there are a lot of chapters on the front line that need financial support to advocate on our behalf, especially in Long Beach. I'm proud of our Black Lives Matter chapter and what they've been able to accomplish. Sister Dawn Haynes is one of the leaders of that movement, and I was proud to present her with a check before we left so that she could continue and grow what needs to happen in our community, particularly monitoring Long Beach police. So that's really where we are. Our goal is to get folks to the polls and to show up and show out when need be.
All right. Wow, that's a beautiful thing. And yeah, Black Lives Matter Long Beach, they're doing a thing out there. I have met them. We've actually had them on here on Coffee Conversations with Greg Day so that we can, educate the masses, just generally speaking, what, the Black Lives Matter movement stands for. Let me just bring in Pastor Robert D. Bush. Pastor Bush, good morning, sir. Let's see here. Are you there? There you are. Yes, sir. Hey, listen, I'm first of all, we go way back like 8 tracks. I just will say that. Let me just say, as also Pastor Tulloss, same. We go way, way, way back. And I want to just ask you, brothers, now so here we have the Commitment March. Okay, so now what did we take away from the Commitment March? Tell me now, where do we stand? We're a week later. Reflect for us real quick, what you felt participating in that great event, and then what we as the public should take away from that exciting time.
Well, I'll jump in right there. I think that one of the things that we have to understand, and I learned this by cutting my teeth with Pastor Tulloss in the National Action Network in Los Angeles, that there's a few things that this march was about, and one of them is the goals. One of the goals was to increase voter registration and then participation in the 2020 census, and then enacting a new version of the Voting Rights Act. And so we were not only rallying just for enacting the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, but we were also looking to make some change. We believe at National Action Network that there's no demonstration. After demonstration, there's got to be legislation. So that we're not just out there marching, we're trying to move policy and see significant policies change and bring awareness to the fact that structural racism is not addressed with talk or goodwill alone.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on Robert, and I want to first of all say thank you, Porsche, for representing Southern California well. I heard your speech, and you did a marvelous job. Again, as Robert shared, I mean, the whole purpose again of the march was to highlight and bring attention to many of the unsung individuals who have been through this process of losing a child due to police brutality. It was very important, as Reverend Sharpton said, to really show up in numbers there in Washington, D.C., to really let the Senate know the importance of pushing the George Floyd bill that is currently being stalled in the Senate. And so at the end of the day, we was able to bring over 100,000 people to Washington, D.C. And I think the message was loud and clear. It just so happened the young man was shot that week from Wisconsin 7 times in the back. It really gave us a little extra, mental power, because that's what it was all about, highlighting families. So there we have families. If you looked at that stage, that wasn't just a group of people cheering behind Reverend Sharpton. That was families of those who have been victimized by police brutality, from Breonna Taylor to Mike Brown to Trayvon Martin. All of their families showed up. And I think we sent that loud message to the Senate that we need policy, we need legislation. I mean, it's okay, as Robert said, to demonstrate, but after demonstration, it should lead to better legislation.
Hey, Reverend Tulloss, so I'm curious now. Okay, I mean, we've been marching and advocating and trying to get, laws changed for a long time, and it seems like every time, even this morning's headlines, we're learning about the brothers out there in Rochester, New York. We saw even in the Los Angeles area a shooting by a brother on a bicycle by the county sheriffs. I mean, it just seems time and time again. At what point do we say enough is enough, and what is really the solution? Maybe there's not one end all, but what do you see as a solution to our situation here?
Well, Greg, this is something, again, we've all been working on for a mighty long time. It seems like, as this reality move forward, it's always every other week there's a different cast member that's brought into this reality. And the reality is this, that we can't be weary and doing well. We have to be able to continue to speak truth to power. And until we as a people can continue to come together and to demand justice and fairness towards all, we're going to always see things of this matter. But it's up to us, again, as activists, as leaders. Our responsibility is to bring light to the situation, to this unjust scenario. So that's our role. And yes, I know people get tired of marching. People, want to take things into their own hands. But I think Dr. King laid that foundation a long time ago of the importance of doing it the right way. We don't want to take the attention away from those who we are advocating for, the families. And so when we look at what's happening in DC, Rochester, New York, even here in Los Angeles, we are reminded that we are still living in times where Black people are being executed before they're given, any type of consideration in the courts. And this is something that we can't stand for.
All right. So, Porshe Taylor, while you're out there on the road there now, what do you see as the central point of your advocacy, now? I mean, shoot, last year this time you advocating for women in motorsports, and now, man, here you are on the front lines of the entire, social justice movement. What do you see as your number one priority?
I think the number one priority is for us to use our platform to advocate for voters to get to the polls and not just vote for, the president, because the president can't affect change locally. We need to vote down ticket, the entire ticket. We also need to fill out that census application and let folks know how many of us there really are in these communities that need the resources. Those of us that don't speak up, we can't get the resources that we need in our communities. So that's our goal. Our goal is to mobilize through riding to the polls, definitely for November, and, not waiting until the last minute. We're going to go ahead and get as many folks as possible to complete these mail-in ballots ahead of time so that we don't have to deal with the disenfranchisement that's happening in our district with gerrymandering and folks, relegating our poll numbers to lesser and lack of volunteers. There's just so many excuses to not show up to vote. There's no reason that our voting day is not a national holiday. But until we step up and do what we can with what we have, we won't affect change. So that's the goal right now, just to get folks up out of their seats and get to the polls.
All right, Pastor Bush. Now you're the president of the Las Vegas chapter of National Action Network. What do you see in Vegas? What's going on up there?
In Vegas, we're dealing with the same things that's sweeping across the country, and that police there's no accountability for police, and we are in need of serious reform for police. And one of the things that I'm working on here in Las Vegas, and that I would like to bring to light to the people that tune into this broadcast, is a lot of people have not heard, and I would encourage you to Google the Police Bill of Rights. The Police Bill of Rights. And so with the Police Bill of Rights, it protects officers that that have an injustice or that are abusing our people. And among the demands for the police, for police reformer, are we have to tear up, which is on the law, which is on passed by Congress, tear up or rewrite the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. And there's state-by-state rules that determine how officers are investigated when they're accused of misconduct. There's a law. There is actually a law in the books, and police are investigated within their department, do not have to submit to questioning by any outside review board, except in the case of criminality. And then the officer can only be questioned or investigated by sworn officers. And so this results in other officers acting as their own judge and jury rather than a neutral third party. So officers can see the charges with the Police Bill of Rights. They can see the charges. They can see the charges that are being brought against them and the evidence in the case brought against them. And then there's limits on how they can be questioned. And so, moreover, officers are afforded a period of what they call a cooling off period before they have to answer questions and can have legal union representation at the time that they're questioned. They get time to get their stories together and prepare their defense. If you and I shot somebody, or if you and I killed somebody, if you and I committed a criminal offense, we would be arrested immediately, but they're not. And so in nearly every state in the union, the police departments cannot publicly acknowledge that an officer is under investigation. If the charges are dropped, then the department they cannot publicly acknowledge that there even was an investigation that took place or revealed the nature of the complaint. And so an officer that goes under investigation, even if he gets fired, he can go to another state or get another job without his new employer ever knowing that he was in a previous case. No other public employee or no other person can enjoy, it gets to enjoy these protections when it comes to disciplinary matters. And so that is on the law, and they have expanded that here in Las Vegas. And they recently have done some work in the state assembly, but what they did does not go far enough. And so we want that whole law to be readjusted, reformed, and put into place where it does not protect officers.
You know, that's an interesting point there, Pastor Bush, because I'm seeing, I think here in Long Beach, even they were, protesting, the police were objecting to a measure. I believe it's coming to the ballot, or they're certainly advocating pretty strongly for it, that we're able to look at the police records, the records of police officers coming in, similar to what you're just talking about. So given that you're bringing that up, I imagine that's going on all across the country, and it's something we need to keep our eye on.
Yes, and every state in the union, or at least 90% of the states in the union, have it on the books, and they have adjusted it to fit it to their particular state.
So,
and let me just add to Pastor Bush. We're looking at a bill here in California, SB 731, the police decertification bill. That's a bill that's way beyond its time, and it's dealing with exactly what Robert Bush is dealing with. So it's important that we get on the phone and we call our state legislators, our assembly, our Senate, and let them know. Look it up, SB 731. I believe that's the Steve Bradford bill that's dealing with the Police Bill of Rights. So this is cutting edge when it comes to police reform. And it will, it will be a game changer throughout the nation.
All right. So the Attorney General of the country says that, we're not really being executed by the police in high numbers. What do you guys think of that? I mean, okay, if I have trust in the government and I hear him say that, but I see every day on TV brothers getting killed. I mean, what makes him say that, and what's your immediate reaction to it?
It shows us very clearly how out of touch our government, especially those that's in positions of authority, such as the Attorney General, such as the President of the United States, how out of touch they are with our community, or with just the people. Often said that it seems as if the president, he lives within his privilege. He lives in his privilege. And so at the end of the day, they're very much out of touch. And for the Attorney General to make that statement shows, again, how distant he is from the problems that we're facing every day in our communities.
So, Porsche, let me just ask you: you out there riding through Indiana, and I want the people that are just clicking in. Porsche Taylor is the president of Black Girls Ride magazine and a ginormous advocate for women in motorsports. And she was on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial at last week's Commitment March. She's out there advocating for voting. We've got to get everybody out to the polls. But let me just ask you, Porsche, when you come down to Long Beach in the local level, I mean, what are the when the city says we want to have reconciliation, and I know you're familiar with this reconciliation program that they were putting forth. What exactly are they reconciling in the city of Long Beach?
Well, what's frightening to me is the police accountability board, especially in Long Beach, are stacked with friends and family of police officers, so they're holding themselves accountable, and that's something that's got to change. We can see on the front lines. We can see out here on the road. I can see. I lost a sorority sister, Sandra Bland, a couple of years ago. She was just in Texas trying to, get to her new job. A traffic stop results in her death. You know what I'm saying? So we can see from these camera videos now, we have to be our own CNN at all times. And we can see that, whether the Attorney General wants to admit to it or not, there is definitely some police brutality out here on major levels. And I'm going to say this, there may actually be other folks, other races dealing with it, but I'm astounded that we can't seem to ever get the same benefit of the doubt. You know what I'm saying? And that's what's frightening to me. You have a simple traffic stop resulting in death way too much. And as somebody who travels these roads, I'd be lying if I told you that wasn't in the pit of my stomach every time I cross this country on this bike. We're out here. There's motorcyclists out here that are profiled just for being bikers, and then be a black biker, and it just takes it to a whole nother level. You know what I'm saying? So for him to say that we're not being, there is no police brutality out here. I mean, he's definitely out of touch. But I can't expect him to be in touch. Let's be honest. These people have been running our country for decades. We have to get them out of office. There's no reason that we have 70-year-old wealthy men advocating for other folks that don't have a voice. And, it seems like these billion-dollar corporations have a louder voice than we do. So something as simple as police brutality, which we know is a major issue in every American city. You can see that from the civil unrest that happened after George Floyd's murder. This isn't something new. That was just the straw that broke the camel's back. So, I mean, Long Beach is no exception to that rule. We see it. There are families that are suffering losses from the hands of police in Long Beach. And let me just say this. It's not that we don't advocate. It's not that we don't want police presence, because we acknowledge the fact that we need police protection in our neighborhoods. But the police are doing jobs that should be going to mental health professionals, that should be going to experienced counselors. And because their budgets are taking up so much, I mean, I think in California the police The average police budget per municipality is over 52% of the entire budget of a city. Well, that doesn't leave much for mental health care. That doesn't leave much for schools. That doesn't leave much for other places where those resources need to be allocated. And that's something that we have to consider. So, there's just a lot of work to be done all the way around. But for him to make that statement that there's no police brutality, it's just disgusting. Because we are our own cameras and we can see up hand and first up close what's really going on.
Yeah, and historically too. I know my dad and my uncles, when I became like, puberty, it was like, okay, look, son, this is how you need to deal with the police. And you said something really interesting there, Sister Porsche, that I was just reflecting on just the other day. I like to take the drive out second, out down, right along the beach through Huntington Beach and Seal Beach and all that. I like to, that's where I think, right? So the other day I was, in my car, I'm driving and I see the police and the feeling that I got, now all my papers are straight. They stopped me. I'm not the guy they're looking for, right? But I'm just saying,
right.
It just had this sickening feeling I had in the pit of my stomach, and I just started thinking,
we all feel that PTSD that comes from watching our loved ones deal with a police stop. You know what I'm saying? Or we've dealt with it ourselves. And you said that your conversation started at puberty. Those conversations are happening way earlier. I'm talking to my 9-year-old nephew now about how to deal with authority, because they aren't seeing our babies as babies. They are seeing our babies and preteens as full-fledged adult males, and they are dealing with them in such a way. How else do you explain Tamir Rice being murdered at just 12 years old? The officer pulls up on the scene, and in less than 2 seconds, he's killed this child without so much as a conversation. And that's because they're not seeing our kids as kids. So we have to have these conversations early. If a police officer approaches you, you need to make sure that your hands are up. You need to make sure that your voice is calm. You need to make sure that you're addressing him as sir. And it's sickening because it robs our youth of the ability to just be youth, to just be kids. But I'd rather have them learn that lesson early than for me to get a phone call that's unexplainable. So it's just really sad. And until we have advocates of all races and colors,
everybody, I got to tell you something. I mean, we use this term now. You're hearing it almost every day, several times a day, systemic racism. And to what she just said, they are having the conversations, at a younger age. I know that Dr. Jawanza Kundufu, who's written several books about educating Black boys, he advocates, us refusing to allow the system to give our children Ritalin as a cure or as a way to manage the ADHD and, the whole thing. And there's an interesting statistic that Dr. Kundufu puts out there, and that is that they are tracking our youth from 3rd grade. They can look at how he has behaved, how his grades have been at that time, and put him on direct track to the penitentiary. So they're expecting us to be bad actors. They're expecting us. They see us different. They don't see children. They see criminals.
Yeah, that's exactly right. First of all, let me give a kudos to Porshe Taylor. I mean, doing an interview on the road, coming back to Long Beach, California. I mean, that's amazing.
Dope, right?
Yeah, but of course, we've seen that in the history of in our country. I mean, we know that that's a known fact that they build prisons for those within 3rd grade. They know the trajectory of our prison populations 15 years down the road. I mean, these are the things that we're dealing with. Systemic racism. I know the Attorney General didn't want to deal with that. They said it's not true. We're making things up. Besides the few little commentators we see on Fox that looks like us, that, support their claim. I mean, living in America as being a Black man is a scary time. It's always been scary for me. And so I know I share those same sentiments, and I have a 14-year-old son that we have to have this conversation every single day.
Yeah, okay, so look, Pastor Bush, Pastor Tulloss, we're men of faith. And so I'm just listening to everything and I'm watching everything. Just been an observer of the community for decades. And I want to just say, my conclusion is that, we can protest, we could change laws, we could change regulations, policies, but, until we change the hearts of men and women, we really won't get to the bottom of this whole thing, because to me, this is just rooted in, the sin of hate. So would you agree with that? And if so, if not, even if not, just comment about that. Like, how do we change the essence of mankind to love one another, like for real?
Well, I think one of the things, and since you talked about faith, is that now today our churches are not rooted in or are not teaching the people within the church that social justice is a part of what the church should be about. I have said this for years and years and years, and Pastor Tulloss has heard me say this, that if you want to change or start a movement in any city in the United States, you start with the local Black or Latino newspaper and start with the church. And unless the church, I have heard very, very few pastors teach on social justice and tie that in with faith in the United States, with the exception of one very good teaching that I heard, and that was Dr. Cheney right there in Long Beach. His church is involved in social justice and in the movement, and I think more churches need to be involved in the movement and engaged in the movement, because my father used to have this term, and it said, when you don't know what you don't know. And this is a teaching that people need to be educated about, and how they both tie in, how our faith ties into social justice. Martin Luther King was both a preacher, an activist, and was senior pastor of a church.
Yeah, let me just add a little bit to that. The Bible is the blueprint for better living. We can always go to the Bible. There's nothing new under the sun. So when we talk about social justice, I mean, you can look at Moses. He was an organizer. He was the very first organizer, organizing all the individuals to get out of Egypt. So we look at Jesus. He was a revolutionist. People didn't accept him, etc. I think, again, we have come a long way from the church being that hospital for all. And I think that element of racism, that element of community empowerment has been overlooked by, other things within that's more glamorous. I've been a social justice. I've been pastoring now for 13 years. Greg, you've been knowing me since I was a kid preacher, within the realm of that. I believe the church is a hospital, and I believe that it's important that we as a community, we address all the issues pertaining to our communities. And so I believe that when we have seen, that's one of the reasons why I led one of the marches for George Floyd downtown. I want to make sure we took the church beyond the walls. We wanted to get the church on the forefront. And in the midst of a pandemic, I had over 1,500 people that hit the street of downtown LA with us. That's one of the reasons why I'm a supporter of National Action Network all across the board, as an ambassador, a brand ambassador. So within the realm of that, I believe, again, I'm seeing through most of these encounters that we have seen through TV, from George Floyd to the young man that was killed in Wisconsin, I'm seeing a resurgence of the Black church being at the focal point of many of the concerns of our community.
It's an important discussion, and it dawned on me. I was just sitting here looking at your names here, and since we are all men of faith, I just wanted to kind of bring that up, because one of the number one questions and considerations that the community will always ask in times of crisis is, what's the church doing? What are we? What are they doing? What are they doing? And what is it? Church ain't doing nothing. And it's it's really,
and what we need to say is, look at us. We are
right.
doing something. I don't know what they're looking for. If they're looking for a magic wand or whatever it might be, look at us. I mean, we're at the forefront. I've been at the forefront in Los Angeles for over 20 years, so look at us. Are you expecting, a brand ambassador? I mean, this is our responsibility as people of God to continue to be an example of what faith in God can do on the front line.
And I think if I can jump in, Greg, one of the things that I'm very excited about, of course, was, and Pastor Tulloss, I'll say it again, was my mentor in social justice, and when I was with National Action Network. But him going over to be president of the Baptist Ministers Association was huge, and that now we got somebody there that believes in social justice, that can help lead others that are not in the fight, or that weren't in the fight in social justice, that are men of faith. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do here in Las Vegas, is get more pastors involved, because they've got flocks who will follow them into this fight, and we need men of God to rise up and be a part of what we're doing.
All right, yeah, and again, they're just adding to the importance of this part of our conversation is also you're hearing a lot from the government about these evangelicals, and actually, Coffee Conversations with Greg Day, we're preparing a discussion to talk about this evangelical Christianity versus the Black church. Because I got to be honest with you, I just think they're preaching about a different God than when I hear from the pulpits of where I attend. I don't know. It feels different. It sounds different, and their actions at the head of the government are markedly different. What do you think there, Pastor? Go ahead, Porsche.
Go ahead, Porsche.
Well, I just, you got to remember that, the church was also used to keep slavery in effect for 400 years. So folks are taking from the word what they feel they want to take from it for it to foster their goals and their purposes. But we know the truth, and we know the way and the light, and that in order for that the church was a cornerstone in organizing us as a people out of slavery, and it will continue to be a cornerstone for us today. So, I just don't, those folks that call themselves evangelicals, if you can support our current president and call yourself an evangelical, I just don't understand how the two reconcile themselves. So, there's got to be another motive for you to support that whole regime, So I just put any faith in those folks. If you can support Trump and his rhetoric of divisiveness, there's no way that you can call yourself a true person of faith. Just because we can see the coded words that he used, we can see by him sending in troops to fight unarmed citizens. You know what I mean? It's just none of this looks right. None of this looks like what the forefathers of our country intended. And if we don't make some serious changes now in the voting booth, we're going to look up and we're going to lose these rights. And the church is the cornerstone of that.
Yeah. It's very interesting. One of the foundational, tenets of white supremacy is when they look at us, they call us children of a lesser God. This is why they, one of the reasons they use to oppress us in that way. But yeah, we're very, very deep conversation. Pastor Bush, you wanted to say something there.
I was just going to say that I have been very disappointed in the evangelicals, in that I think it's a publicity for most, and also a money grab. And I'm going to call a name, and that is Paula White. My wife used to work for Paula White, and I've been very disappointed in the position that she's taken, and also the way that she has, in just taking the position that she took and that has taken, has thrown Black folks under the bus, who have been some of her biggest supporters. And I think it was just a publicity grab and a money grab, and I think she ought to be ashamed of herself.
I agree.
My time and my thought process within the realm of the evangelicals is we're just living in two different worlds, very seldom if I go to evangelical church, I'm gonna see a black Jesus. So, I mean, I understand the Bible, the truth of the Bible, and I can't judge individuals that choose different sides of politics. I mean, I had at my church, Omarosa, for 10 years she served. She was at the front line with everything that we did, from the church to National Action Network to everything that we've done. And she took a position in the White House, and we all know where that led to. So, I mean, at the end of the day, nothing good will come out of this White House. And the appalling silence of the evangelical is something that I'm not surprised, but it's something that needs to be worked on.
Hey, let me ask you guys. So I'm curious to know. You guys, all three of you made the trip to DC last week. Describe your feeling, your gut feeling, when you looked out across that mall and saw those tens of thousands of people there. What is the feeling that you had, like, in your heart?
For me, it was incredible to see not just the turnout, but so many diverse races and ages participate in what was going on. And then from Porsche to Dr. Brian and even Yolanda King, the speakers were all fiery and all had something to say. And I was so godly proud to be a part of something that I believe is going to make a difference in the upcoming election and also in the movement moving forward.
Pastor Tulloss?
Yeah, just the energy aspect of just Washington, D.C. I mean, we were all in D.C. A lot was going on in D.C. I mean, the Republican convention was happening, and then down the street we have this big march that's happening. And just the people, the excitement of the people, just people standing in line in the midst of a pandemic. I mean, this is over 100,000 people. You said tens of thousands. It was hundreds of thousands of people that's at this event. I mean, standing in the same location where King stood 57 years ago, and seeing the excitement of individuals that we know are going to be moved towards action and not just talking. And as Porsche shared earlier, one of the big messages was, we got to vote the whole ticket. We got to get out and we got to vote. And so the excitement, I just know everybody there that was of legal age is going to get out the vote, because just the passion and the commitment and just seeing all the people, it was just something that I will forever remember.
And if I can say, can you imagine President Trump looking out his window and seeing all those people on his doorstep a couple of blocks away? I'm sure it was an amazing sight.
Wow. Porsche, how'd you feel?
Well, I have to say, as I'm riding through Indiana now, and I'm noticing big Trump billboards, on the side of the road, standing in front of that mall, it gave us hope. It gave us hope that, we are in greater numbers than we believe we are. And I also was astounded by the youth. There were so many young people that had stepped up to participate in the march and were out there, helping, volunteering. So that's letting us know that our future generations are going in the right direction, and that's encouraging as well. When I was asked to speak, it was definitely an overwhelming feeling. I had a bit of a panic attack before I went on stage, just considering standing where Dr. King stood and where John Lewis stood, and realizing that it was now our turn to pick up the mantle and nobody else was going to save us. We have to step up. We have to step up in our communities. We got to use our platforms, and we have to brand our message as strong as our opposition in order to affect change. So that's what I'm committed to, and the march definitely solidified that commitment to come home and go to work.
Well, I got to tell you, Portia, I was very, very, very proud of you, and just proud of to feel your energy through the screen as I watched what was happening out there, and just being someone who now lives in Long Beach. I'm not a lifelong Long Beacher. When they ask me that question, what high school did you go to, like they do around here, I really can't claim it. I've only been here a couple of
Right.
years, but just being a business owner in Long Beach and being somebody who now lives here, I was just so very, very proud of you, and congratulations for that awesome, awesome exposition that you did out there. Now, what's your folks in Long Beach? What are they saying? What's the family say when you say, "Hey, I'm about to go speak on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial"?
Yeah, I had to say, my mom was like, support. At first, I wasn't, I didn't know if I was gonna do it. To be quite honest, that's a pretty big stage. And I talked to my mom, I talked to some of my mentors, and everybody pretty much agreed that I had the skill set, I had the words, and that I would do a good job. So, everybody was super proud. My roots are in Hawaii. My mom's family's in Hawaii, so to get messages from my uncle and my grandfather out in Hawaii that they saw the speech and they were proud. And then my grandmother her mom is still alive in Texas, and she was able to show it to her as well. So to know that my elders were proud and that my biker community was proud of the way that we represented, that meant low if I don't get back home and get to work. So that's what the goal is now.
That's really, really awesome. I appreciate you guys so much for that. So now we've done this. We have our marching orders, I suppose, from that basic experience. And so I guess what you're saying now, Pastor Tulloss, Pastor Bush, you guys are saying just get out the vote.
Get out the vote.
Is that
Get
it?
the work.
That's what we
Get out.
need.
Get the work. Get out the vote. And faith without
Yeah.
works is dead. If you're gonna talk about
Yeah.
it, you gotta be about it.
That's
Gotta
right.
be about it. All right, all right. Okay, so what would you guys say? Let's kind of shift gears here real quick. I'd like to get your opinions on what when Biden chose Senator Harris for his as his running mate. There was a lot of hateration out there. I mean, people were already just kind of contrasting her record as the attorney general and all of that there. But what's your opinion now when people disparage Senator Kamala Harris as the vice presidential candidate? What do you say to that? What say you?
Well,
Well,
from
I'm
my
gonna say,
perspective,
go ahead, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Portia.
I want to say this. The things that we have to remember is there will be no perfect candidate. Jesus is not running. So, if you're expecting a candidate to tick all of the boxes, we have to knock that off and realize that it's up to us to join together behind our candidates with a united front to get these clowns out of office. And I can't say that more emphatically. Like, you may not be a fan of Senator Harris and her voting record. You may not be a fan of how she ran her duties when she was a prosecutor. But I'll tell you this: she had always had the will of the people at the forefront of every decision that she's made regarding America. And we have to get behind her. We have to get behind Biden. No candidate is perfect right now. Let's look at these next 4 years. That's
Yeah,
all.
I was gonna say piggybacking on Portia. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of Senator Harris. I've been a critic of a lot of her policies and works that she's done here in California. But at the end of the day, I can't imagine another 4 years with the current president. I can't imagine another 4 years of us being the laughing stock of this country. And so when I think about it, I believe that Biden chose the best choice he had. So within the realm of it, I support that ticket 100%. And I think we are now getting to see our state senator, evolve on this national stage. So she's always been a fan of the work. She's always been at the forefront of many of the issues. She's always been available and accessible. I mean, she's always been. I mean, she sent a message to the march on last week. So again, she's not the perfect candidate, but she's better than what we have, and it's up to us as a community to rally behind her.
And if I could just piggyback on what Porsche and Reverend Tulloss said, I don't think that she was the perfect candidate, but I think she's perfect for him. And I'm about 4 years off, but from the very beginning, I predicted that she would be the next president of the United States. So she will be after Biden is elected, and then she'll move right into that spot. But I think what people don't do is they don't really research her record and all of the good things that she's done in California, and the things that she has done, and the work that she did with Joe Biden's son that swept across the country, that allowed people to be able to not be stuck in bad home loans and things like that. But I think that one of the things that I'd like to say more than anything is that we need somebody to prosecute this case against Trump. And I don't think there was a candidate that was more qualified than she is to be able to do that.
Amen.
And I think she's going to do a wonderful job. And I'm looking forward to especially her debate against Mike Pence.
Well, you know what? I agree with all that has been said there. And Nate Session there, who's listening, Coffee Conversations with Greg Day, he's saying she's not perfect, but we'll take her. And I'm with you on that there, Brother Nate. It's really interesting.
Pastor Nate.
Pastor Nate, yes. You know, it's so good to have and refreshing to have this conversation with you guys, and I'm really appreciative of this, and I'm just sucking in your energy, having been there live in Washington D.C., bathing in the essence of that public demonstration of our advocacy, and giving me new energy to go out here and continue to advocate out here in these streets, and certainly take my duty here as a broadcaster very seriously as a source of information and inspiration for our community. And I just really, really appreciate each and every one of you for what you're doing there. And as we're running down to the end of our time, I'm just going to share with you all that, the whole issue of police abuse is certainly at the forefront, but there's so many more, injustices that we need to address. Lots on the economic front. Robert, you mentioned about the home loans and predatory lending and all that kind of stuff. It's just a lot going on out here. But, also with the issue of police abuse, it's international in scope. I'm learning about a story from a friend that I think all of you all know, Pastor Kelvin Sauls, down there in South Africa. They've got a story that's coming out now where a 10-year-old was shot and killed, 10-year-old autistic child was shot and killed by, police, and the people are up in arms and everything like that. And so we're investigating that. And I think on Tuesday, we're going to have Pastor Sauls here with some people from South Africa to kind of talk about that case out there in Johannesburg, but at the same time, just contrast, the reactions of the people as the globe tries to stand up for, against police abuse. And it's just really, really something. Our lives matter. And I just want to say to everybody, what do you all say when we say Black Lives Matter and people say, all lives matter? What do you guys say to that?
It's a typical response from individual to shout all lives matter. But again, Black Lives Matter is much more than just a organization. It's a statement, and it's a message that we seem to be the first to get picked off and demarginalized by those that's in office. So there is a lack of respect for Black lives, and I think it's important that we continue to share that message, because Black lives do matter. It's a statement. It's a statement that we live every single day, and it's something that we can wear with a badge of honor, because until people understand that Black Lives Matter, we're going to always have, enemies that say all lives matter, but no, but blacks do too. We don't see we get the fit the last part of the stick.
Sure. Porsche, what do you say? Can you hear us? You're rolling through the underserved technology part of Indiana. Pastor Bush, what do you say?
I have to echo what my brother and friend Pastor Tulloss said, in that, and I think it's a deflection on people's part to not accept we are marginalized as people, and that we are in a situation where we are abused. Listen, police departments were originally formed to keep Black folks in line. That's why they weren't there for crime. They were there to make sure that the slaves didn't get out of line. And the Bible says that nothing is new under the sun. And I think that we have to make sure that that we get the message out that yes, all lives matter, but Black lives matter, because we're the ones that right now are being abused.
Yes. There you have it, y'all. There it is. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. We want to just thank you, Pastor Robert Bush, Reverend K.W. Tulloss, Porshe Taylor out there rolling in Indiana. That's gotta be a first.
I'll be in Missouri in about 34 miles. So
Oh, that's what's up. Thank you guys so much for joining us on Coffee Conversations with Greg J. If you missed this live, it's okay. It's on demand. You can just go to Coffee Conversations with Greg J, the Facebook page. You see it on beachcityradio.com. Let me just make a statement. Just take this opportunity to make a statement. You see the headlines this morning where Zuckerberg, the head of Facebook, was saying they were going to monitor and try to prevent misinformation that's happening out there. And I think on its surface, that's a good thing. But I will say from experience, we do take the time to, boost this Facebook presentation each and every time. And we put it out there to across the country, actually across the world. We have some really defined audiences that we advertise this conversation to. And a conversation like this will probably not be accepted by Facebook. They are very, very particular in how they block the advertising, even though we're paying for it. It's very, very interesting and quite frankly, a little bit unfair. And I talk to a lot of African-American newsmakers and news media outlets, and they're experiencing the same thing. So when they say they want to block and try to prevent, things like hate speech or influence on electioneering and all of that, I think that's a noble objective, but they need to do a better job. Mark Zuckerberg, y'all need to do a better job of defining, what that is. I'll give you two examples. Number one, when it was Juneteenth, the whole world, because we were in the wake of the George Floyd murder, the whole United States embraced Juneteenth as this, like, all of a sudden it was a thing, a huge thing. And we had a friend of ours on to just talk a little bit about the culture of Juneteenth and how should we celebrate Juneteenth with our families. What are the traditions? And, it was very light. They blocked that one. We had another one when the headlines were that record companies were removing urban from their lexicon. They were no longer calling Black music urban music. And I had a renowned record company executive come on with me, and we ended up reminiscing about our time together, in this music industry. Is a very great and light conversation, and they prevented that from making the rounds, even though we were paying for, the boost. So I think that, as they moderate the content that's coming across their platform, they need to do a better job. So that's my editorial for this morning. And there it is. I'm just griping. Thank you guys so much, Pastor Bush, Porshe Taylor. I see Pastor Tulloss has already departed us. Everybody, oh man, just love one another. Love one another. Porsche Taylor, you be safe. I'm just sending you positive vibrations of safety right now. But get
Thank
you
you.
home just safe, safe, safe. Have them angels surround you and your motorcycle as you roll through this country. Come on back to LBC in one piece on your brand new Indian
Absolutely.
motorcycle, girl.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to take our time, get there one day at a time.
That's right. That's what's up. All right, everybody. Love one another. Thank you so much for listening. Peace and blessings.